Hey there, Cybercrime Junkies. Got a question that keeps you up at night, or ever wish you could hear from a specific guest, or have a true cybercrime story you want us to investigate? You can now text our studio directly at 904-867-4466. Don't be a stranger. Text us at 904-867-4466. Don't miss the chance to be part of the conversation. Text us direct at 904-867-4466.
The U.S. Secret Service is the world's most elite protection force, and it's at the cutting edge of investigating and solving the most complex cybercrime on the planet today. It's no surprise that to join the Secret Service, there's an insane amount of training and leveling up of your skills, recognizing and stopping social engineering, your emotional intelligence, psychology, you name it, since your role is at the top of national security. But did you know that you can become a Secret Service agent even after starting your career in a totally different field? And it doesn't have to be law or law enforcement. You can go from being a high school science teacher even to protecting the most important resource of data and national security we have in the Western Hemisphere, the U.S. president. I'll prove it to you. We have not. In this second episode, we explore behind the scenes of cybercrime analysis today and the unique experience Paul Eklof brings given his experience. We cover topics including how cybercrime uses AI, espionage in cybersecurity today and cybercrime, and the new rise of extortion as a service. This is the story of Paul Eklof and how cybercrime uses AI. Come join us as we dive deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today, interviewing top technology leaders from around the world and sharing true cybercrime stories to raise awareness. From the creators of Vigilance, the newest global technology newsletter, translating cyber news into business language we all understand. So please help us keep this going by subscribing for free to our YouTube channel and downloading our podcast episodes on Apple and Spotify so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show.
I'm not a big fan of the word proactive because you either act or you don't. You can't act before you do, but that's another etymology.
That's a marketing.
Nerd alert, but that's marketing. When you look at countries that are doing preemptive cyber attacks in anticipation of potential conflict, China has hacked into the infrastructure in Guam because Guam would be the primary center with its base at Andersen Air Force Base, and you have Agotna Bay with the Navy down there. Would be the primary response for the Pacific Fleet during any conflict, any conflict in the South China Sea, Taiwan, any of that. So they've hacked into that. Hearts and minds. They reach into the systems. And that's another story. But when you look at the shipping of the infrastructure that would be required for any type of physical conflict, there are these cranes at all the ports that would load the military vessels. Are all under the Internet of Things under Chinese control, as far as we know. But that's
so you bring up a good point, and so I want to address a couple of things. One, critical infrastructure. When people talk about shoring up our critical infrastructure, people think of our nuclear plants or these big systems, but a lot of America's critical infrastructure is the local water plant.
Yes,
right, and they don't have a chief information cybersecurity person on staff. Most of them. Like, they don't even have basic systems a lot of times. They are funded by small city governments and county governments. That is probably where some of our most vulnerable situations exist, don't they?
Absolutely. And we've seen a hack of the water system in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We've seen it in another location where they went in remotely and changed the percentage of salts and fluoride and chlorine that were used in the water. And what they raised it to and if I'm incorrect, correct me, but they raise it to a level that would be relatively deadly. Now, I know the LD50 on chlorine is probably very, very high. You'd have to drink straight bleach to really get injured, but
Doesn't everybody drink straight bleach? Oh, never mind.
Well, I'm not going to go down that political rabbit hole either. Yeah. But they were able to hack into those things, and because of a number of reasons, most of these systems are online. And once again, you hear Luddite arguments like you hear around data, is that, well, we should just pull them all off online again. Well, you just need redundant systems. The world you cannot put Pandora, you can't, everything's out. You can't close these things, and they're critical. These operational technologies and the Internet of Things. Now, it's not always as devastating as people think. I remember having all of this horrible training, for those of us old enough to remember Y2K, how horrible it was going to be. And my joke was like, why does my microwave care whether it's 1900? Is it suddenly going to go, I'm not invented, I'm not working? Like, there's times when it mattered and times when it didn't. They just didn't add 4 zeros.
I was involved in a lot of technology then. I was able to formulate an explanation of it generally, but I still personally never understood it. I'm like, what? Like, how is it really going to stop working because it doesn't know the right date? Like, I don't like what's going to think it's like 1854 and we're going to actually, it's not, well, we weren't invented then. We have to shut down. Like what? Like it was still going to work. And then Y2K happened and everything was fine.
Correct. And it was interesting. I mean, I'm sure there were some impacts in some of the work, but once again, that gets to the overreaction.
Yeah. I want to ask you about this. So today's cyber criminals, the ones that are always in the news. When I say in the news, I'm talking not the geeky tech news that you and I might read constantly, right? I'm talking about what every American is seeing on the news or seeing on Facebook and seeing on Instagram and LinkedIn and everything, like Black Hat, Lockbit. These are cyber criminal gangs. They've evolved so much, and they're not state actors, but their software is designed to not work on organizations that use the languages of the CIS countries, right? Like the certain Russian dialects, Iranian dialects, Chinese, etc., right? And then they have been involved through pairing up with social engineering groups like Scattered Spider and stuff in some of the big hacks like the MGM breach or the Caesars breach. What are we seeing in their evolution?
Well, that evolution is interesting because you do see people who push back on the nation-state narrative. You don't have to be nation-state funded to be nation-state complicit, where the country knows it's occurring. After SolarWinds, Russia came out with a statement and said, cyber attacks would be against the interest of the Russian people and we would never use it. And then Putin in a speech said, well, there might be patriotic hackers that if they go after our adversaries, they would be just, and you could operate here. Once again, not using the Russian language and going after those targets.
Right.
The evolution, and we can get into AI, which is even beyond it, because before AI, what you saw was cybercrime as a service. That was huge, and we've even seen this evolve from cybercrime as a service to ransomware as a service, where the average person, you can get a tutorial on Telegram or the dark web, and it'll teach you how to do it. You don't even they'll just sell you they're not breaking the law.
You don't have to be technical. It's basically plug and play. You just have to be criminal, and you can go and launch these things. And if you're operating from a country that is not going to hurt you, so long as you don't do it against any of the organizations that they have an interest in, you're fine. And you can make hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, absolutely. That cybercrime as a service, ransomware as a service, phishing as a service is really, really dangerous because, like Scattered Spider that you mentioned, the MGM and the Caesars hacks, they're hard to pin down because they're a group of decentralized individuals and cells, much like terrorist cells, terrorist organizations, like Al-Qaeda or ISIS. They have individual cells that don't communicate. They go under, they emerge. What we're seeing now, I think like I said, once again, setting AI aside, which is just pouring gasoline on the fire.
Well, I think
the latest type is
and for the listeners and for the viewers, we're going to have another segment on AI and deepfake. and it's going to be Paul, myself, and a special guest, mystery guest.
Mystery guest. It's going to be interesting because AI, once again, you see people fighting it. If you're not using some sort of generative large language model now, and I don't want to just say ChatGPT because it's one of many. If you're not using it now, or you're saying that it's cheating, then don't use a calculator or Excel for your taxes.
Exactly.
Because it is a tool. You cannot just rely on it, but it is a force multiplier for one of the most important things in human interaction, which is communication. It's accessible to everyone, and if you use it as a writing partner or as a tool, it's incredibly powerful to improve almost every aspect of what you do. But realize, as the earliest of adopters, criminals use it too to perfect their phishing language. Or now one of the things they probably asked ChatGPT, well, if you were a criminal, what would you invent? I noticed this new type of hacking that is, I call it, it's not ransomware, it's extortionware. Because ransomware is I get in to get your data, give me money or give it back. Extortionware is I catch you doing something and I'm going to extort you for the same thing for Bitcoin. And I don't want to give them any ideas, but if cyber criminals would quit demanding Bitcoin, because I wouldn't know how to create a Bitcoin account, I don't want one. And I'm a Luddite there. But the whole history, Luddism or Luddites started because of textile workers who were afraid that the loom would kill their craft and take their jobs. That's where the term comes from. Sounds a lot like writers and AI. Now, there is a potential, but it could also just make them that much better. It could steal jobs or it could create them and make more people good writers. But when you look at extortionware, there's even extortionware as a service, which will come next.
Well, the companies for you. Evolution of gangs like Black Hat and Lockbit, because from what we're hearing and seeing is they're looking at, well, do we launch these mass, and they chart all of these campaigns just like a big business. But the effort that has to be involved in ransomware attacks is a lot higher. And a lot of times they're making much more just by taking the data, meaning we're not going to lock you down. You've got a copy of your data. So we're not barring you from accessing your data. We're saying your data can't be publicized, and we're going to publicize it if you don't pay it.
And that's where ransomware evolved into extortionware. It's a subset of it. And you do see that. And it's interesting because even most of these hackers or cyber criminals, they have morals and standards. Like you would, even they looked at each other when they started hacking hospitals. I think one hacker group hacked the other to prevent them from doing it because you're affecting people's healthcare. There's plenty of other targets. Why go after a high school releasing children's, mental health records? The school has to pay because we're making them financially accountable for it. But until hackers aren't seen as these cute kids in hoodies in the basement and seen as nation state actors that can affect every aspect of your life. And this comes back to preventing the social engineering. More humans need a BS detector and a tactical pause. If you talk about in the physical security realm, before you react, and once again, I'm very self-aware. You call it BlackBerry Tourette's because that's when I discovered it. You get an email, I got to respond right away. Right. Rather than taking a pause, digesting it, understanding the motivations where it comes from, and thinking of a more cogent response. The immediacy of communication today leads to a lot of that miscommunication.
Correct.
And if people would take that tactical pause, like one of the earliest, I remember using the term social engineering while briefing. We were bringing President Obama to Guadalajara, and I was doing a manpower briefing, and I was warning them as a supervisor of what to look out when you interact for OPSEC and InfoSec. And I said that you will be socially engineered. And they all laughed because they hadn't heard the term. And I said, like, when I go to a bar, if a companion acts like I'm a 10 when I know I'm a 2, a feeler ought to go up. So if you're
you're being socially engineered. If
you're a 2 in America, you're not a 10 in Guadalajara. Assume that someone is trying to get information. You're suddenly fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
That's social engineering used for espionage or other purposes. But when you see that human element, like I said, no matter how cyber or how geeky and nerdy we get, it's human interactions. I can put up enough cybersecurity on this laptop that it can never be hacked. Nothing can get out. You can't but I probably can't use it. We couldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
Because this stream is hackable. the data that communicates us, our different accounts, it's all exploitable or weaponizable against us. The answer to that, once again, is not to eliminate it. It's to allow it to be used for good purposes, because criminals already do, and regulate it in some way that is onerous.
And just be aware of the risk and make your decisions based on the awareness of what the risk is. Driving a car is risky. You risk bodily injury and death every day, but you still choose to do it, right? But you are aware of it.
Risk awareness, risk acceptance. What's your risk tolerance, I guess, is the term that business uses. You have to choose, because you can dial up and down that friction, but you can't set it at 0 and you can't set it at 100. This is not trying to delve into some really sensitive things, but the world is not binary. It's a prison of two ideas. I think that's a Greg Gutfeld. There's bleed over. It overlaps. That pendulum never stays at one end very long. And we've seen our political discourse doing this. It used to just sort of pivot like this with the occasional outlier. It's just swinging so wildly out of the picture now that we're governed by the fringes, and we're led, unfortunately, back to cyber. Many of the things you read online about various problems or issues with the thing, even the things I just said, they aren't originating with facts, and they're not originating with reliable American sources. They're foreign injects to sow distrust and concern in the American populace.
Deception. Yeah,
it meets a foreign aim. Like I was in Baltimore for an improv thing that was really good the other night, and it was funny. One of the things that came out of it was what we recommended was a new marketing term for Baltimore. It's not as dangerous as you think. Like it's kind of that wouldn't be. Our carjackings are gentler than other carjackings. But
our muggers are more polite.
Our muggers say please. It's interesting when you look at the impacts, and I'm a bit all over the place with it, because I don't believe that national security, physical security, or cybersecurity are separable. Because even one senior citizen having their retirement stolen through a romance scam it's still tragic. Stole their physical money, but it's a national security concern because there are social safety nets for that. If that senior citizen
and the money is being gone, that money is being used to fund more criminal activity, which does or could. I mean, it's still going into the criminal element, which is part of the issue.
Well, absolutely. And that gets far more damaging than you would even suspect. A good friend and coworker of mine, Andy McClenahan, pointed out to me when we were looking at Snap fraud. There are documents, like in Al-Qaeda's Inspire magazine, that refer to Snap as a jihadist allowance. They're taught how to come here. The jihadist allowance. They're taught how to come here, manipulate our social safety nets to feed and clothe themselves until they have to act. In Cuba, social services in America called La Ayuda, or the help. I think most of the food aid in Cuba comes from stolen benefits in America. It's astounding the impact that a lack of program integrity, a lack of cyber hygiene, which all overlap, can cause to an individual, community, or a nation.
So as we wrap up, Paul, if a individual, not an organization, but individuals that are getting online, what are some of the things that they need to be aware of? Like, what are some of the best practices that you see with all your vast amounts of experience in Secret Service, cybersecurity, understanding cybercrime better than anybody? What should individuals do? They can't just unplug and go camping and live under a bridge, right? Like, what should people do? Or like, what do you recommend to people? Like, you've got to be asked this at dinner and stuff. Like, so what am I supposed to do? Like, what?
I don't want to disparage camping. I mean, it's a great American pastime.
We love it, and we love bridges. They're a great part of.
You can't eliminate bridges, Dave.
Community to come after us now. So
where would the trolls live? But it really is a good question of what you can do, and it comes back to like one of my nerdy heroes, Carl Sagan. He said more Americans should have a baloney detector. I was a paid paranoid for 23 years. I was trained to come in a room, and I think differently. When I look at systems, and I've done it in my current company, I did it in the Secret Service, I did it for a brief time in the intelligence community with the CIA. How do you look at something as an attacker? how would I destroy this? And then you can put in defenses or put redundant systems in place. But for me, the number one thing is you'll notice that no law enforcement officer in a restaurant sits with their back to the door, because they want to be aware and be able to respond. At your keyboard, you want to be you don't want to think that everybody is a criminal, but
why would you not?
It's kind of like, I'll quote another.
To
quote Rush, "I can't prevent a stranger is an uninvited friend." I'm not sure if that's the exact quote, but I will throw out. I had to get a Rush quote in. I don't want to say assume the worst, but have a sense that, look at the implications. If you get an email that says this is the IRS, and if you don't click here, you're gonna lose your house. Don't click it. You can actually roll over it and see that the URL is not what it purports to be. I get 5 of those a day because my email is put out in press releases. Have a sense, use a little reasoning, look at things investigatively. I would say take a tactical pause. If you're really not sure, ask a trusted friend. I love that
tactical pause, because after studying the science of social engineering, a tactical pause lets your body adjust and gets away from that amygdala hijack, and let you remember the context of your training and what they're asking and why would they do that. Maybe I should just call the person and verify first before wiring funds or all of our company W-2s or whatever, right?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Imagine setting yourself apart from the competition because your organization is always secure, always available, and always ahead of the curve. That's NetGain Technologies, your total one source for cybersecurity, IT support, and technology planning. Picture picking up the phone and having decades of technology and cybersecurity expertise on the other end, like a bat phone, but with a team of specialists ready to make your business faster, easier, and more profitable. Since 1984, NetGain Technologies has designed, built, and implemented customized technology solutions for businesses of all kinds. They offer a clear roadmap and security plan to keep threats at bay, all at a predictable, affordable monthly cost. NetGain Technologies supports organizations across the United States, providing the benefits of a fully staffed in-house IT department and security team at a fraction of the cost. Get peace of mind. Get competitive. Get NetGain. Contact NetGain today at 844-777-6278 or reach out online at netgainit.com. That's netgainit.com and get ahead of your competition today.
Back to Reagan, you mentioned really trust but verify. Take that tactical pause in law enforcement and military. It's called the fatal funnel. When you step into a doorway in a warrant, execution, or when you move the president out in the public, it can be a fatal funnel. Your keyboard is that, but trust but verify those things. Take the tactical pause, allow the frontal cortex to kick back in, and think: could it be a threat? Now, don't let them play on your immediacy or your lust, your greed, your envy, your sloth. All of those things that if it looks too good to true, it probably is. But I know this sounds simplistic, but I would say take a moment, take a breath. Whatever they're asking you,
at all,
10 seconds.
I think it gets to the root of human behavior. I mean, at the end of the day, what we're talking about, like you said in the beginning, it's not that complicated. It's part of the reason why we translate cyber, because people turn off. People think, oh, it's cybersecurity. It's a bunch of geeks. It's just technology. There's a bunch of acronyms. I don't understand it. I'm like, whoa. This is not that complicated, right?
Well, back to the 2,500-year-old root of cyber. It's about control, pilot,
right.
Take back the control. The person who sent you the email does not have the control. The cyber criminal wants you to think they do by preying on immediacy or preying on your needs or your greed or your fear. Don't give the cyber person the cyber. Take it back. Take control and just own it. You don't have to relinquish that by responding immediately or clicking the link or or when you get a text, I unfortunately assume every text is errant or fraudulent, so I look at it a little better. But
Well, I don't know
that's
what you
not
mean.
to say you could probably get me.
Joe Biden texted me earlier and said, "Hey, Ashley, I'm really excited about you joining me for dinner. Just like donate to my presidential campaign." I'm like, "Well,
Ashley,
being Ashley, I don't think I'm going." But when you get those things, obviously, I mean that's an obvious one. That's like that's like the prince from Nigeria back in the '90s, right? But some of them are really good, and
that's the
that's
thing.
where. I mean, some of them are when you're working and you're at work and you use a certain platform or program or whatever, they email you from that platform. They're like, how did they know that? Right?
Well, and absolutely. But people don't fall prey to arrogance either. Be self-aware. I may be aware of cybercrime and physical security. You know it more than anyone. But don't assume you can't be fooled. I can be fooled. I could click one at any time. You could click one at any time.
I know I could. I absolutely know I could. And for those wanting to hack me, I will already tell you would succeed. But the surprising thing is you're not going to get anything out of me. So I'm just
I laugh.
If you want to go after somebody, go after some of the people that Paul and I know, because they might be worth it. I'll do an episode on that.
I'll give you some names. I'm still convinced that between you and now this is some secret plot between you and Brett Johnson to ask me my life story, prey on my pride and ego and my fear of just not being relevant. I've answered all of these questions and you've stolen all of my answers. Like you probably know my grandmother's maiden name, my first pet, my car.
You don't need to do any of that. We're going to use deepfake and create and we're going to recreate you for decades to come.
That's terrifying because I should, Shakespeare said it best in the Mark Antony speech, but I probably should be interred with my bones, any good that I do. No, it is realize that all these things are human. I think people need to connect themselves to these terminology or this terminology and these ideas that seem foreign or seem too technical. And if a knucklehead like me can understand them.
And me. Yeah, that's exactly right. I wasn't killing chickens and putting them by the air vents.
I didn't kill the chicken.
You understood the science.
Safely killed the chicken.
Yeah, I was one of the kids that would have walked out there and kicked the thing. Like
chicken did stink, but I didn't kill the chicken. My class did not murder a chicken. We bought a grocery store.
People will be reaching out. I'll be on the chicken list. It's a bad thing.
I don't need PETA or Not Petya or any of those.
Not Petya. We don't want Not Petya.
We don't want not PETA. We don't want them.
Yeah, we don't want them either.
But it really is astounding. Just put the humanity back into the science, and that is the problem that we have. The science literacy in the country, that was another thing of Carl Sagan. And it bleeds over into this, knowing your history or an interest in history. I didn't like or know history when I was younger. Now, as you experience more of it, and I've been in the room for much of it with many presidents, whether it was the Oval Office or in Kabul or in any other number of countries, in Buckingham Palace or wherever I was lucky enough to be through my time in the amazing Secret Service. But in the end, it is the people prey on the human condition. And you can't escape that. You need to have self-awareness, but that's true in anything, like we talked about before the show. Having that self-awareness that you could fall prey to it, not judging people who do, understanding that their trigger may have been stronger at the time. That attack surface that moves may have had a singularity so that their guard was down or their stress. But that's the problem with some of these hackers. They'll find these people, like hospitals that have cancer patients. We'll shut down your chemotherapy machines if you don't pay us. Good God, those people, Dante didn't even invent a hell deep enough for those people. But
well, they do that because they know we have to restore those systems.
You do. And there should be far stronger crimes. I think originally one of the longest sentences for a cyber or hacker was like 13 years. And now I know it's getting longer. But
there have been more and more arrests and more, you had the person that was involved in the SolarWinds breach, person that was involved in the Kaseya breach, caught, gone to trial down in Texas and other places. So, I mean, we're getting there. We just saw the one of the young gentlemen that was tied to Scattered Spider. And Scattered Spider, along with Black Hat, who we've talked about today, were involved in the MGM and Caesars breach. But he was a young person, like 19, 21, something like that, down in Florida, and they caught him. So it'll be interesting to follow some of these stories.
Well, and the key to stopping it is once again getting back to data, removing investigators, criminal, investigators, whether it's law enforcement or from cyber groups, removing their access to this information is not the answer.
No, absolutely not.
Children would go missing. Crimes would go unsolved. You've just got to take back control.
Absolutely. I mean, the criminals are going to get access to the data. How do you?
It's already out there.
Like arms. It's like you have criminals with AK-47s and police officers with handguns. Like, why? What? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I purposefully avoided that as an example because
I know
murder is already illegal. Making some things illegal don't stop murder because that's already illegal, but people do it. But I avoided that third rail at all costs.
Yeah, exactly. So just to give everybody a taste of what we're going to do with deepfake and AI, because if you think cybercrime and crime and national security and personal fraud is scary, just wait until we're going to talk more about what deepfake is doing. To give them just a taste of it, can you share the story? Are you permitted to share the story of what you guys did where like the business leader came out and was talking to like the national team, explaining, hey, everybody, thanks for coming to our national convention. And then, by the way, I'm not even real. And then the real person came out on stage.
Absolutely.
Without even disclosing the company necessarily.
Sure, absolutely. AI and deepfakes are such a game changer for fraud because fraud and hack, not just fraud. You saw the deepfake of Biden calling the voters, I think it was in New Hampshire, telling them not to vote. Tracked to a company in Texas, which is interesting. But what we did was we made a video that was identical of the leader and saying that, AI is going to change the face of fraud and is something we need to embrace. And now that I have your attention, much like this, that is not really me. And now that I have your attention, I'd like to introduce the real. And I mean, it's Woody Talco, who's fantastic. He's been in the anti-fraud, helping children for 14, 15 years with the company, who actually puts his money where his mouth is and puts his information analytics where his mouth is to make lives better and partner with government to get the services they need, deserve, and have earned.
Yep. Well, and it's remarkable, right? When you think about that, everybody's there looking at their leader and somebody that they admire, thinking, wow, this is really exciting. This is great, only to realize that what they're watching wasn't even real. And what I think we're going to demonstrate for people when we do have that, and we can show some samples of it, is how real it is. I mean, it has the intonation, the emotion behind it, the cadence, the syntax. It sounds like, and we've always been taught seeing is believing, right? But now you don't even know. And with an election coming up, I think it's a really important, not to be political at all on either side, but because of the potential and the real issue of misinformation, this is going to be really interesting as well. So look forward to that.
I was receiving classified briefings in the Secret Service about the impact on politics or presidential protection years before the public knew that it was possible. And if you look at the software that I use to create deepfakes, it's good, but it's not what the criminals are using because I'm hindered by laws, as I should be, and my own ethics of what I can and will create. But the voice cloning, and you can do it in any language. We could take this video, upload it within 2 minutes. It could be in Mandarin. It could be in ancient Greek.
Yep.
And our lips would move and it would be our voices speaking it. I've done it in multiple languages. It really is. It's fascinating and scary.
Well, I just read that we're one of the top podcasts in the Netherlands and Cambodia for some reason. So maybe we'll just recreate this whole thing in Cambodian. Is that what they speak there? Maybe. I don't know.
We can do that in the Netherlands. I've been
that
there
would
many
be
times.
cool, right?
Enjoyed,
pretty exciting.
It's a beautiful place, great beer, good waffles.
Yeah, I love it.
No, absolutely. I think I posted something in Dutch the other day.
See, there you go.
Which was interesting. That gets to Stuxnet. When we talk about cybercrime, one of the most powerful uses of cybercrime in war was the tool that was in development since 2015 to upload malware into Iranian centrifuges so they could not, weaponize uranium and make it fissible.
Oh, I did see that. I did see. Yeah,
a Dutch supply chain person says that it went there in a water pump,
really?
rather than being installed in a thumb drive. I don't know if that's possible or true, but the Dutch are certainly brilliant enough, intelligent, and good-looking enough to have pulled it off for your Dutch listeners. But that's what they believe was a water pump, and it had it in it. I don't know how that works in a uranium enrichment facility, but that was the news. Kind of fascinating. But that Stuxnet is an example of positive, because if Iran's not getting a nuclear weapon faster, I'm on board.
Yeah, I think we all are.
I think we all are. So it's interesting.
So we will have links to you, sir, in our show notes. We will have links to you've created information on Fraudstradamus. But
I didn't create him. I discovered.
If you don't have LinkedIn, I think our audience all is involved in LinkedIn. But if you don't, just sign up. It's free. Just get a LinkedIn account and follow Mr. Eckloff, because you will know about the state of cybersecurity, cybercrime, things like he already has months and months of content that he is already ready to go. I mean, there's so much. You're like one of my best news feeds. Like, I'm finding out what's going on. I'm like, how do I keep up with this guy? Like, does he not sleep? That's what they say about me. And you're like 500 times ahead. So really good stuff. So
caffeine in 2 sources.
I'm telling you. So
I just do have to correct you. I did not create Fraudstradamus.
Oh, you did not? Okay.
I discovered him in a dusty library in somewhere in Europe. I will not divulge.
Okay. Well, yeah, it was probably on some mission. Very cool, man. Thank you so much. And you know that I'm going to be in touch because I did speak with Brett Johnson, got the clips that we needed. We'll send those to you, and we will have some creative fun and really go into the in-depth on deepfake and AI very soon. So,
really looking forward to it. I enjoyed this. I hope that you and your
absolutely,
especially the Dutch, I hope they get a lot out of this. And
I'm just glad you cited Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because
you have to.
I know it's like it's used in so many different contexts, but my children don't value that. But who raised
it was the first KBA.
What
is your favorite color? And then you're launched, if you say it wrong, red, no, blue.
Right.
You're launched into the pit.
And then launched. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. So, hey, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, first of all, for your service. Remarkable. First is your service as a teacher. Fantastic. And then your service for our government. I mean, absolutely. We're so grateful. Thanks for all the work that you continue to do. You work for a phenomenal company. Just keep doing it. We will talk many, many more times in the future if you will continue to be socially engineered by me, and we will definitely talk again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Really enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Well, that wraps this up. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you got value out of digging deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today. Please don't forget to help keep this going by subscribing free to our YouTube channel at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast, and download and enjoy all of our past episodes on Apple and Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for joining us.